Yes, I think the thing I'm most excited about being here in Les Fresnoy is that I have a connection with students. And I think that it's every generation's duty, really. It's not a luxury. It's a duty to pass on the knowledge that we've been given. Because as the ancient Greeks told us, when you go across the river Styx, and you get to the other side of the river, you lose your memory. And so you have to leave something behind so the people who are coming next can find the way and know which way to go and already have some ideas and have some information and some techniques that they can use. So each generation has to really be sure that they leave something behind before they cross what the Greeks called the river of forgetfulness, which is death. Material death. So I feel really very privileged to be here, to be able to interact with students and, of course, to present the work to the public. For me, the most important aspects of human beings, human life, existence, including the existence of the cosmos itself, of which we are a part, the most important principle is transformation. Buddha described this 2,500 years ago when he said, as the first principle of Buddhism, after he finished his meditation under the Bodhi tree for 3 days and defeated the lords of illusion and understood the true reality, he said, as a first teaching, all life is changed. So I interpreted that as the idea that, when you look at the image of Buddha, you're actually looking at someone who said 2,500 years ago, someone who described a human being as a moving image. Before cinema, before anything else, he understood right away that we are moving, transforming, changing, growing. And I think this constant motion, which is around us at all times, is the life force, is the essence of our existence. Yeah. I think the positive side of the Beat generation was the fact that these guys were breaking the rules. Human progress is based on two principles. One is tradition, which is the continuation of the past. But then there's the breaking of continuity, which has given us some of the most important revolutions in the history of the world. I mean, in art, you look at, the avant-garde, which originated here in France in the 19th century. And it was basically a group of guys who broke the rules, who did everything wrong the way the painting instructors told them to do. They just said, fuck you, I'm not doing it. And they did it their own way. And they created a whole new form of art, which, after 150 years, has become a tradition. So the thing about tradition is it exists in a fragile, tenuous state at the beginning, and then it begins to settle in, and eventually it will solidify and become a tradition. And then it's what's required. And this exists in every culture. I've studied Japanese culture a lot, and there are the same kind of periods in Japanese culture. Every couple of 100 years, maximum, someone decides to break the rules. When I was younger, and I had the privilege of meeting John Cage several times, talking with him, and I worked with David Tudor, who was his pianist, and I really was very privileged to be with those people. But you realize at a certain point you can't just break the rules to break the rules. And Cage and Tudor got really angry after a while when people were trying to copy their work and make something based on their work, and they just did something opposite. You know what I mean? Just to do it. That's not it. That's not the thing. That's not it. That's so easy to do, to just break something, or it's like a child, throwing something down. Oh, it exists everywhere. I mean, a video is, for me, a kind of fairy tale. And the other thing that happened in Western culture since Descartes was the fairies and the elves and the golems and the creatures of the forest, which are really, what they really are our imagination. That's our imagination that was stolen from us, that was erased from our daily lives because of these idiots who decided that the intellect was more important than the heart. So they took away from us the angels and all these beings who are not theirs, they're in ourselves. And so that was a really, really dangerous break. The shift from the Renaissance to Mannerism was very similar to the shift from cinema to video, because it's almost identical. And this is another thing that happens throughout culture, repeats all the time. I mean, the Renaissance were hyper-realists. I mean, and they actually provoked the most extreme form of realism, which is the Northern Renaissance painters in places like Bruges. I mean, when I look at their work, Van der Weyden and Van Eyck and
Nico van der Goes?
Yeah, and all these guys, I see suffering of unimaginable proportions. I mean, any time a human being believes that they could take on nature and compete with nature, then you're asking for a life of suffering. So if you're forced to paint the reflection on every pearl in the woman's necklace, when you've already painted every hair and the little hair on the beards, this is suffering beyond imagination. These people were working for the merchant class who don't see beyond their financial confidence, and they don't see mystery around them. They see only profits. And so they were forcing these artists to work in a way that was so extreme and scientific and precise that it's painful for me to watch that. So Mannerists came along and they fractured, they cracked it. And what they did was they started to distort space. So the beginning of the distortion of space is the beginning of emotion and the beginning of yourself. Because when we cry, we are absolutely opposite to the Renaissance ideal. Because face goes like this, and we get all bent out of shape, and we're not the perfect man, we're not the perfect composition, and we're not in perfect balance. So this whole idea of Mannerism really became the beginning of a kind of transfiguration, to understand the human being as a transformative being, and even the original transformation of Christ on the mountain with his disciples. And when the light came and he glowed, he became light, was an expression of a real human being. What we really are here, we're not material bodies, we're light. We're ethereal beings. And that's our existence. That's what the importance of the soul and the mind. We have metaphysical software. Human beings are the combination of hardware and software, the body and the mind and the heart. And that's why we have an affinity towards computers and towards these electrical machines, because when I'm talking to you right now, the brain that's explaining these thoughts to you is running, my entire brain, I researched this, runs on 4 watts of power. 4 watts of power is one of those little night light bulbs you put in your bathroom at night. That's the entire electrical energy of the human brain. The body is only half of the mind. And the other half of the mind is actually your thoughts and your feelings, and they go out. And that's exactly what this technology is doing. It's exactly radar. Everything is like that. So we've actually reintroduced the idea from the ancient world, from antiquity, of vision as a kind of connection between your soul and something out there. And that's why you see it. The medium of it is not light waves, it's desire. Desire is the medium in the ancient world of how we experience the world.